It's no secret that Burnley, Brighton, and Southampton could have been relegated this season. It has been an awful season for these clubs, and if they don't improve before next season, they could be going down. Looking at Burnley first, they've picked up about 36 points so far this season. They've scored about 31 goals, which is shocking. That's an awful return. And they conceded about 47 goals, which is also poor. But interesting because Burnley is supposed to be a team that are solid defensively. That's supposed to be what they're good at. So for them to have this kind of return for this season is a worry. And it's something that needs to be addressed for next season or before next season. Looking at their squad, you can tell that this squad has massive issues. Looking at their attack, they've got Chris Wood, who has scored 11 goals this season, which is a good return, but he can't do it all on his own. He needs a partner. Now, I think that partner used to be Ashley Barnes, which it kind of still is, but I think Ashley Barnes is past it. There's also Mate Vidra, who he's been at the club for years now, but he hasn't really proven himself, so they need to move on. Who else have they got? They've also got Jay Rodriguez, who I think he's past it. I think he did well last season, but I think they need some new options now. So they really need to bring in another striker for next season. A striker of real quality. Quality. So I'm saying upwards of 40 to 50 million euros. They need to spend the money to get the returns. Look at the midfield. They've got Dwight McNeil, who they need to keep him at the club. Hopefully they can because he's a quality player. They've got Jack Cork and Westwood, who are not really players that are going to score goals. They're more central defensive mids, so yeah, they're not going to really go forward much. And that's about it. Obviously, there's Brownhill, but he's not really a player that offers you much. And in defense, I think their defense is okay. Actually, I think Charlie Taylor and Matthew Lowton can go. But Ben Mee and Tarkowski should stay because they're the best defenders at the club. And maybe even the Premier League. Although, of course, it has been a poor season. Excuse me. So you can't really overlook that, but I still think they're pretty good defenders. Looking at Southampton next, they've got about 37 points this season. They've scored about 41 goals, which isn't the best, but it's not as bad as Burnley, so I think it's alright. But it should be a lot better. And they conceded about 59 goals, which is just dreadful. That is shocking. They really need to address their defense. I mean, if Burnley needs to address their defense, then Southampton definitely needs to. Now, their style of play kind of, it's kind of expected that they're going to concede goals because they play open attacking football, but I still think that they should bring in some defenders in the summer. So you've got Nathan Redmond, who for some reason he's been playing as striker recently because I think they're short on options, but he's more of a midfielder. I think their top scorer this season is Danny Ings. He's got 10, so that's a decent return, but they really need more options. Now, obviously, Che Adams, he got 7, which is a decent return, but I think they need some more. They need some more goals in attack. Who else have they got? In striker position, they've got Theo Walcott, who I think he's more of a midfielder, but they play him as a striker. And he hasn't really played much this season. Obviously, earlier on in the season, I think he featured more, but now he's more of a bench option. So, yeah, they need to move him on. Yeah, that's about it for the attack. In midfield, they haven't really got many options. Obviously, James Ward-Prowse, he's had another decent season with 8 goals. You've also got Armstrong, who chipped in with 4. And then Minamino, who is on loan from Liverpool, so they can't really look to him next season. And then in defense, you've got, to be honest, I don't really know Southampton's defenders that well. but they've got Vestergaard, Bednarek, Walker Peters. I think he's a decent defender. I think they really need to overhaul that defense. I think it's actually pretty shocking, actually. Now, I've seen Southampton play quite a few times this season, but I think their defenders are too slow. For their style of play, they need fast defenders. And I know for a fact that Vestergaard and Bednarek are not fast defenders. They've been in the Premier League for years and they've been exposed multiple times. You've got McCarthy as goalkeeper, who I think is a decent goalkeeper. Janipo is a weird one because sometimes he has brilliant games, but for the most part, he does absolutely nothing. And I think they need some new options. They should move him on and bring in some other players because if Southampton are going to stay up next season and have a good season, they need to bring in some new players. And for the last one, we have Brighton, who have actually performed just as bad, if not worse, than the other two. I think that... Anyway, let's just go through it. They've got about 37 points this season. They've scored about 35 goals, which is pretty poor. And they conceded 39, which isn't that bad, like compared to, the other two clubs. Excuse me. But I still think they need improvement. Looking at their attack, Danny Welbeck with 5 goals this season. It's a decent return. And then you got Neil Maupay with 8, so obviously he's their best attacking option. Then you've got... Who else have you got? Not many options. You've got Jahanbash, who I'm pretty sure he had a better season last year than this year, so he's gone backwards because he hasn't even scored this season. So that's how bad he's done this season. Alzate, he's got 1 goal, and Connolly, who he did better last season. So it looks like they're going to move some of these options on because they're just not delivering. Then in midfield, you've got Trossard with 4 goals. That should be a lot better. I think he does look like a quality. He does look like a quality player, but he's just not delivering. Then you've got Gross, who I think he's past it. He had 1 good season, and since then he hasn't looked the same. Bissouma, he's not really a player that's going to score goals, but he's got 1 for this season. Davy Proper, this guy has declined massively. He was so good in his first couple of seasons in the Premier League, but now he's past it. Even McAllister as well. I think he's gone as well. That's about it. Actually, yeah, that's about it for midfield. In defense, I think the defense is okay, but they play with 5 defenders, so I'm not really sure. Now, obviously, you got players like Adam Webster and Veltman, who have improved a lot from last season. You got Lewis Dunk, who's been a rock for years now. Actually, he's not exactly a rock, but I think he's Premier League level. Let's just say that. Ben White, yeah, decent defender. And then you got Sanchez in goal. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention they've got Matt Ryan on loan at Arsenal, but I'm not sure what's going to happen with him. So yeah, this team needs a huge overhaul. All these clubs need a massive overhaul. But obviously, that's going to cost a lot of money. Now, with all these clubs, they should be looking to spend minimum £100 million in the summer. That sounds ridiculous and it's a lot of money, but if they're serious about staying up and having a good season next year, they have to do this. If they don't spend at least 100 million or anywhere close to that, then none of these clubs are serious, and they'll probably get relegated next season. And that's about it.